In this video, we're going to talk about how you can make your own widgets for Python notebooks using AnyWidget. And to help introduce what I mean by this, here's an example of one such widget. I'm in a Marimo notebook now. You can see that I'm able to select different colors and I'm able to draw points on a plane. I can make a brush that's very thin, so you can see me do a bit of a line drawing almost. And I can also make a brush that's very wide. Dots are scattered around as I draw around now. And as I scroll down, you can also see that there's this one chart that updates whenever I draw. So if I start drawing a thin line above over here, the line also appears down below. So what's happening here is I've got something happening in the front end, in the browser, in my notebook. All this stuff that you're seeing here, well, JavaScript needs to be involved there somehow in order to draw that, but we're able to pass any updates to Python, which can then cause all sorts of other things to happen in Marimo, because again, Marimo is nice and reactive, cells update if there's a change. But the point of this video is to just shed a little bit more light on how you might be able to build widgets like this yourself, and also to help explain how you should think about them, not just when you build them, but also when you use them, because there's a few things about them that are just slightly counterintuitive at first. Okay. So before talking about the code that you might want to write if you're going to make your own widgets, one thing I figured I might do first is just explain what's so different about these AnyWidgets. Because they do a thing that's a bit of an anti-pattern if you think a little bit about state management. Now, to help explain, I've got two custom widgets that I made. One widget over here is a 2D slider, so I can move this puck around, and then you can also see that X and Y coordinates update. So you can imagine instead of having two sliders, I can do value setting of both X and Y with just one widget over here. As I slide this puck around, you're also going to notice down below over here, this is other widget, and this widget responds by just keeping track of a trace. So all the values that I hit with the above widget, those kind of get logged down below over here. And, you know, it's a kind of a playful exercise. We're basically doing a scatter chart and logging some values at the same time. So now what is happening here is I have a widget over here that I'm able to interact with. And the moment that I interact, it is able to emit something. It is able to emit a kind of change. And similarly, I've got this other widget that responds to a change. And this widget in particular is actually keeping track of its own state. And just so you can see how these things are wired together, I've got my one widget over here that is that slider 2D widget called pad. This other one is called log. And then down below over here, you can see that that log widget, the scatter chart, that has a method called append, and I'm able to append X and Y values together with a color, and that depends on this pad value. Now, the way this works in Marimo is there's this reactive nature to everything. The easiest way to maybe show that is to just quickly make a normal slider. So you can see over here, every time that I move this slider around, the cell below automatically updates. And similarly, every time that this widget receives a change by me clicking and dragging, this cell below is going to update. And that means that whenever this pad object over here receives an update from AnyWidget, this variable quote unquote would update, just like the slider, what we saw before. And that also means that this cell has to rerun. And because that cell has to rerun, I'm able to append stuff because there's this one method from this other widget. And this is a way that you can wire these widgets together. But in order to understand what's happening here, it helps to also appreciate the moving parts. There has to be something happening in the front end here that causes a Python variable somewhere else to update. So we need some sort of way to bind the JavaScript thing to the Python thing and vice versa. Now, with that said, it's going to be easier for us to look at some code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the Hello World example from the AnyWidget website. That's this code block over here. So I'm just going to copy that. And there we go. Copied into my notebook over here. I have this thing called a counter widget. What I can do is I can just use autocompletion, Hello World counter widget. And what this widget is able to do is you're able to click the thing and you can see a counter value go up. At this point, one thing that's cute to show is that you can, of course, bind this to a variable. And what you can then do is you can have that variable appear more than once. And if I were now to click maybe the above button, you're going to notice that the button down below also still updates. So even though there are two, I guess you could say, views into this object, they do actually share the state. So any click is going to make a change actually happen. Now, if you're working from a Marimo notebook, there's this extra thing you got to pay attention to. And to explain that, we're just going to quickly peek at this one thing in the code over here. There's a count traitlet on the first line. This is the only line of actual Python code inside of the object. The rest is just this one string with JavaScript. That JavaScript is self-contained. It has everything that it needs to do everything on the front end, but this count over here, that is a property. And what I could do is I could fetch that. And now you can actually see that, hey, yeah, that count value, that's something that can come out of this widget. So that's super cool. And what I'm even able to do is do kind of things like this where, oh, I'm going to set the count value equal to 20. And when I run this, you're going to notice that indeed the button value also updates. Now, let's remove that equals 20 part there. Let me run the cell again. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I now want to show you something that's counterintuitive at first. What I can do now is I can hit this button, and when I do, you're going to notice that the value on the button itself changes, but this count value above doesn't. What I can do is I can hit play on the side over here, and then the cell will actually update. But just clicking the button here isn't enough to actually have that reactive chain in Marimo trigger. The fix to this is to just wrap that widget with this Marimo UI AnyWidget helper, and that is the thing that's going to make Marimo realize, oh, whenever the internal state of this object changes, then I should also propagate that forward, and now you're going to see every time that I hit click here, the count value above also updates. So if you're going to do anything with AnyWidgets in Marimo, you do have to remember to actually do this. We now see that we are able to do something in the front end with JavaScript, just clicking, and then we're able to propagate that as a change to Python, and that's also the binding that we want. So how does that work internally? All of that is done inside of this JavaScript over here. So a AnyWidget needs to have an underscore ESM property that has a string that contains the JavaScript. But we're not going to look at this over here because that's hard to read. Instead, what I did is I copied that code above over here, put that in a markdown cell. And if we have a look to the JavaScript that's actually there, then you're going to notice that it all revolves around this one function called render. That's the thing we got to export, and that function receives two things. It receives a model and it receives an element. So I'll keep it brief and a little bit shallow, but the way to think about that model and that element is the model is basically this object that revolves around the data that is shared between Python and JavaScript. In particular, the data that I'm talking about, that will be whatever Python variables you declare right over here. And in particular, those have to be variables that are these traitlets. Traitlets are kind of special in a sense that they were designed to sync up JavaScript variables with Python variables. And it's these traitlet variables that go into the model. And then also if you have a look internally what's happening here with that model object, you can get the count out, for example. That's the thing you can do with a model object. You can also set the count value. You can also save the changes and sync up. So that's what this model parameter is for. And then everything related to actually rendering, well, in a browser, you are dealing with HTML elements. And you can append one element to another, but then you do need to know what you're actually able to append on. And that's what this element is for. This element is really most of the time just there. So you could do this at the very end. So you can generate whatever HTML element you like, but you can just append that to the final element at the end. That's what this is for. There's lots of ways to write this function. You typically have to do something where we create an HTML element, then we bind all sorts of events. One event would come from the browser, like what do we do if user clicks on the thing? What do we do if someone drags? Stuff like that. The other event that you typically also listen to are events that come out of the model, because as we saw before, you can actually change your variable from Python as well. And if that happens, the widget does need to know how to respond. So you would typically say, if this event were to happen, then run this one function. Typically, those are anonymous functions, but it doesn't have to be. But this is a self-contained minimal set of JavaScript, and that's the thing that any widget needs in order to actually properly run. Now, of course, you can put this in a separate file. You don't always have to do this with a string. Another thing that's also good to know is you can also do the same thing, but with CSS. So I could do something like, hey, button, background, dash color. Let's make it light blue. You can now see it's actually light blue. And you can also add some padding, why not? The really cool thing about this, by the way, is that you can also define different buttons. So here's a normal button from Marimo, but you're going to notice that despite the fact that I've declared a very global property, I'm basically saying all the buttons in this CSS section over here, any CSS that I define here is going to be scoped just to this widget. So you're not going to accidentally change the CSS of other elements on this page. And maybe just to prove that point, so let's make a counter widget blue. Let's make a counter widget red. You can now see when I put them side by side, I've got this red button over here and a blue button, but they don't interfere with each other's CSS rules because, again, even though they do have the same button that they try to attach to, they are scoped, so no concerns about that. So that's a hello world widget, and obviously you're going to get things that are more and more complex as you do more bells and whistles. In my case, I have this personal project called Wiggly Stuff, and yeah, there are tons of widgets in here, and they do become more complex than what I just showed you. But what I figured might be good to do now is just highlight how things might be different if you do things in an actual library. So I've got Wiggly Stuff open in Z over here, and what I'm just going to go ahead and do, let's go into Wiggly Stuff. I'm going to open up that 2D slider thing that I mentioned before. And again, you can see the same pattern, right? So slider 2D is defined over here. It's just that my ESM, that's now from a file. So I'm opening that up as a separate JavaScript file. There are definitely still traitlets around, so all that stuff is the same. I did add a custom initialization function over here, but the only thing that's really different now is that you do have a separate 2D slider over here that is in a static folder. And if you are doing anything with a Python project, you do have to make the Python project aware of that. So if I go into my pyproject.toml file, which is kind of my package definition file, I guess you could say, then halfway in the file, you can see that there is this artifact that has to be packaged along as well, which is that static folder that I just mentioned. And this way, this package will not just contain Python code, it's also going to bundle along all sorts of JavaScript and CSS code for you as well. And speaking of bundling, if you have a quick look at the make file, then you are going to see lots of these ES-build steps. ES-build is a tool that lets you maybe do a little bit of React compiling on your behalf, but it can also do tree shaking such that all the code that we get in the eventual Python library is nice and minimized. If you're working with an LLM, they can definitely help you do this. But it's good to know that for some widgets, you can just write the JavaScript file as you would normally. For other widgets, you might want to add this one extra build step. The best advice I have on this, by the way, is that if you're keen to maybe make your own library with your own widgets, maybe even with an agent that can help you with the JavaScript stuff, really the best advice is to just go ahead and to fork wiggly stuff, because agents are really good at just not just reading any skill files, they're also good at looking around the library. Hey, what's the code organization like? Let me just copy that. And that implies that if you want to use an agent to make your own widget, it's probably just going to be a whole lot simpler to just clone this repository, make the one widget you want, and to just then delete everything else. Now, a final pro tip with regards to widgets, right? Widgets are amazing because they let you do these interactive things that otherwise wouldn't be obvious. But I do want to mention that widgets aren't always needed. Now, for the example that you're seeing here, it makes a lot of sense to use widgets because one component relies a lot on interaction from the browser, and the other component is mainly there because it solves the whole state management problem for me. But if you're just interested in doing something visual, you actually don't need an AnyWidget. You can just do things with static outputs as well. And just to give my most convenient example of that, there's a library I've made called DiceKit. And a dice object, which I can make from just making a dice with 6 sides, a dice object represents itself as a table, or I should say a probability table, which I represent as a histogram. It's the better way of putting it. And what I can also quite easily do is just add 2 dice together, pretend that I'm doing 2 dice rolls, and then the representation updates again, which is amazing. But this is happening without any widget whatsoever because this is just a static output. It's just some HTML that I'm rendering, and that is the representation for that object. If you want to do things like this, just know there's some good news. Just take whatever object you have and just make sure that you add this method to it. So there's this representation method that you always have, the dunder_repr one. If you're dealing with an environment in the browser, there's also this convention _repr HTML_. This also works in Jupyter, by the way. It's not a Marimo specific thing. But if this is defined, then the notebook is just going to pick this function as a way to render itself. And you can put whatever logic you like here. I'm doing something with an altair chart, for example. But when you have something like this, the only thing you got to do is send valid HTML back. And then you also have a really great visual for an object. It won't be interactive, but for a lot of things, it's also just totally fine. I hope this was useful. If there are further questions about AnyWidget, do let me know. Leave some comments in the comment section down below, but also make sure you check the links in the show notes because they will give you some interesting sources to double check as well. Thanks for listening.